What's up, CHFFL? Welcome to Week 3 of the 2022 season. Shaping up to be a great one so far. In Week 2, Grant bounced back in a big way, showing everybody that he is still a top team despite losing in Week 1. Mark asserted his dominance as the MAGA King atop the MAGA Gang Conference. And we have 2 trades for trade review, and we're going to play a new game in a new segment called How Wrong Was I? Which is exactly what it sounds like. I want to take a second to welcome people watching this video who are not owners in the league. I've noticed it's a 12-team league, and these videos have been getting 20 to 30 views a week. So some people are here who are not in the league. Thank you for watching. If you're confused or lost, there's a link to our league in the description of this video, and you can go there and see all of the rosters, all of the teams, so you get a better idea of what's happening, and you can follow along better as I go through. Let's start off, get right into trade review. The first one was Parker Minnie, and this was predicted in my video last week, part of the trade spotting segment. Parker trades Daryl Henderson to Minnie for Brandon Ayuk. As I said last week already, this is a solid maintenance trade. Teams needed, Minnie needed more running back, fewer wide receivers. Parker needed more wide receiver, fewer running back. Works both ways. Next was the big one, and I think a little bit more the topic of discussion, my trade with Max. A little background before we get into the actual trade. I have actually struggled a lot with these early season trades over the last few years. Arguably done a good job at the deadline with draft pick trades, keeper trades, but in terms of early season, last year I traded T. Higgins and Mark Andrews to Brad for Terry McLaurin and Robert Woods. Woods, of course, got injured the very next day or two at practice. Higgins ended up being a really good keeper, finishing the year strong. Mark Andrews, it's been discussed. In 2020, going back one more year, I traded Parker. I gave him DeAndre Hopkins in exchange for Julio Jones. Hopkins had a huge year his first year with Arizona, blew up, one of the top receivers in the league, and Julio struggled with injuries the whole year and was essentially not startable. From 2018 to 2019, there really wasn't anything interesting to speak of. The last trade I found for myself early in the season was 2017 with Ryan Scott when he was still in the league. So anyway, I'm hoping that this one can go well and turn around my trade woes. Curtis Samuel and George Kittle were sent from my team to Max in exchange for Michael Pittman. Samuel, I picked up off of waivers, highlighted how big of a pickup I thought that was. He's been getting a ton of targets in Washington. And Kittle, of course, tight end is a desolate wasteland this year. So Kittle hasn't played yet. Max is hoping that gives him a positional advantage against other teams. Michael Pittman, a lot of hype, out last week with a quad injury. But people talk about him as a wide receiver 1. I consider him a low-end wide receiver 1. Assuming good health, Kittle and Pittman are both supposed to play today. Assuming everyone stays on the field, I think this is a really important turning point for both teams. It gives Derek and I, the wide receiver we need to compete with Mark. And Max, it fills out his roster. He was having to start somebody not very appealing every year. Samuel goes right into his wide receiver 2, and Kittle goes right into his tight end, gives him a good positional advantage. Both teams could benefit from this in a very big way. We'll monitor it as the season goes on. Talking about waiver wires for week 2 is really quiet. That's why we spent so much time on the trades. Sterling Shepard was the top grab at only $6. 3 defenses were grabbed, plus an additional the Buccaneers on Friday after waivers cleared. Cheaper ads included Nelson Aguilar, Logan Thomas, and Evan Ingram. Not a lot to talk about on the waiver front this week. After wagers were Samaje Perine. I look at it and I want it to be Perine. It's Perine and Tyler Conklin. Now, new segment. How wrong was I? This is where I discuss how wrong I was about various predictions. And if you're watching at home, this is supposed to be said with that old 1970s match game kind of, Commissioner Eng was so wrong. How wrong was he? You know, it's funny to me. Anyway, Tyrion Davis-Price last week was the top of my Eng's top available list. He was picked up, I think started. He got injured in the game and only scored 5.3 points. How wrong was I? I wasn't wrong here. I'm giving this a 0 out of 10 wrong. He had 14 carries. I identified the opportunity. I don't know why San Francisco does so well with running backs but can't draft good ones, but he did get the opportunity that I thought was there. Next, Albert O. He was number 2 on my top available last week. He had 2 targets for 0 points. Verdict, I was very wrong here. He might have a future with Denver, but Denver looks awful right now. I feel so bad Bill picked him up and started him, and he didn't get anything at all. I was really rooting for him to just salvage the day, but he did not. How wrong was I when I said Lamar Jackson was the worst value of the draft when he has scored 73 points through 2 weeks? Verdict is, I was 10 out of 10, the most wrong possible. If you draft somebody, pick 30, and they have 2 big boom weeks to start the season that helps you start out 2-0, can't criticize it. Swan, well done. That's how wrong I was. Next, Tom Brady. I called the best value of the draft on the Two Tight Ends podcast, and he's averaging 10 points a week through 2 weeks, and he's currently quarterback 28. How wrong was I? This one's still to be determined. I'm going to revisit this, but Brady has not had his receivers. He personally has looked fine. Game script haven't been there. He's going to be without Evans and Godwin again this week, but I still like Brady in our scoring system with that Bucs team that's going to continue to be good. I still like Brady. We'll look at this again in the future. All right. Enough of last week and enough of how wrong I was. Let's get into predictions. Week 2, I was 5-1 with my predictions. Grant won the team of the week. He's not going away. That was my one wrong prediction, and he really showed me up. Mark came in clutch in the game of the week. As previously mentioned, he sits atop the MAGA conference. Starting out this week with the Smut Hut, see, Monster Cook. Dalvin Cook is a monster. Swan sits at 2-0, and Parker down at the bottom, 0-2. Is Swan too strong for Pa? They're playing this week. Not looking good for Parker. In fact, the entire Smut Hut has the potential to be really boring this week. Banis, stuck in the middle there after a lot of excitement following the draft before week 1. He's looking to separate from Wes, from Marty, from Parker, and I think he can do it this week. And then Diggs, Marty's team, which is mostly Stephon Diggs, goes up against Grant. These are all games that are looking to be pretty lopsided, starting with Swan's Monster Cook versus Parker's Schindler's Fist. There were no Thursday games here. Parker is looking at starting 0-3, and believe me, last year I started 0-4. It is very hard to come back from those holes, no matter how good your team is. Is Swan without weakness? Looking at his lineup, I just don't have a lot to comment on it. One thing, the Bills' defense has been fantastic so far this season. No one's going to question that. But Miami, is it just going to turn into a shootout? Are they going to be able to contain Tua, who we all know is a very great quarterback, and we've all thought that the whole time? Something to watch, but really, Swan just looks so good right now. For Parker, we're looking at who can have big games and swing this. Of course, your first 2 picks, Javonte Williams, Devontae Adams, are who you're going to look for. Parker needs them to come in really big. J.K. Dobbins returning versus New England. Unknown is good. When you're at the bottom of the rankings, you want unknown, and we're going to see if J.K. Dobbins can live up to the hype he had when he was first drafted. A.J. Dillon versus Tampa Bay. That's not a great running back matchup. Can't maybe expect him to have a big game, even though week to week we're excited and hoping for it. I predict Swan here. I'm not going to overthink any of these. All right, next, moving on to Face Jam 2, Banis versus Wes Pokeballs and Pussycats. Najee gets Wes 15.1 on Thursday. In the Smut Hut, Wes seems to be the best shot to get an upset here. And we're going to have a defensive showdown. We have the 2 defenses going up against each other with the Cowboys and the Giants. That'll be fun to watch. Pierce, for Brad, Dameon Pierce is trending up. Getting a little more work every week. Got 10 points plus this past week. Hoping he can turn into the flex that Brad drafted him to be, because that's really the only weakness in the lineup right now, other than Tom Brady. Big question if Brady can turn it around. Not having his receivers this week is maybe not going to be the week we hope for it. And then we're watching that Dallas D versus the Giants. Going on to Wes. Patrick Mahomes versus Indianapolis. Chance for him to score a lot of points. Indy has just looked bad, and they haven't played anyone as good as the Chiefs yet. So Mahomes could have a big day, coupled with a Brady bad day, is why this is the best chance for an upset in the Smut Hut Conference. Gabe Davis back for Wes. Really happy with Buffalo looking fantastic. He's hoping Davis. We don't expect him to beat out Diggs, but if he can just get some of that Diggsy goodness, then he could be a really big wide receiver for Wes. And Dotson in the flex, is he a home run swing? Jahan Dotson, rookie, has not been getting a ton of targets, but he has scored 3 times in 2 weeks. Are we hoping that he can keep up that red zone magic? And of course, Giants versus Cowboys defense. Fun game to watch for that purpose. I'm still predicting Banis. I'm not going to shy away from the consensus here. I'm not going to do that for this whole video, though, so stick around. Next, Marty, the Thrusters versus Grant's team. Both teams 1-1. No Thursday games here. Grant coming in hot off of that huge score, team of the week, over 180 points last week. Marty obviously needs Diggs to continue to boom, to hang with these bigger teams. The Bucs defense Marty picked up. They're obviously a great defense, but are they a gamble against Green Bay? Typically, you don't want to start defenses against Aaron Rodgers, but then again, this isn't the same Green Bay team that we're used to seeing. Just something to watch. Zeke in the rivalry game, Cowboys versus Giants, can he do something? Can he live up to that second round pick that Marty used on him? Now would be a great time to do it. For Grant, we're adding Kyle Pitts watch to our Cam Akers watch on players that Grant is hoping can live up to what he thought they would be before the draft. But when you score 180 points, these are just side notes. Grant's team is fantastic. Are Tyreek Hill and Amon-Ra St. Brown as good as the Cup Chase combo? I don't think you can say that yet, but it's looking like it. Grant looks very, very strong right now, and I'm predicting him to beat Marty. Let's move over to the MAGA Gang Conference. Mark sits atop at 2-0, and Minnie down at the bottom 0-2. Everybody else 1-1. Is Minnie primed for an upset over me, thanks to a really good Thursday? Possible. If you watch that game, you can imagine that I was pulling my hair out. Same goes for Bill against Mark. Bill's in a good spot as well. And finally, we're going to look at Stan against Max. Max perpetually disrespected. Stan, boom bust. He had a big week last week. Can he continue it? Start with my Atlanta Pipe Burst at 1-1 versus Minnie's Kanye's Kittle Killers at 0-2. Thursday, Chubb scored 21.3 points. Minnie had Amari Cooper, Freiermuth, and the Browns defense combined for 41.2 points. 15.1 were scored in the last 2 minutes. Muth had 0 catches. Browns D was at 3 points, and then I blamed Canada for allowing a sack and then throwing the ball back into the end zone as part of, a plan. Anyway, for the Pipe Burst, Michael Pittman debut. Very excited that he's off the injury report. See how he can do. Also tied to Jonathan Taylor, and now that's 2 pieces tied to this Indianapolis team. Can they do anything? They were shut out last week. I don't need them to be a good football team, but I need them to not score 0 points. Also watching, Keenan Allen is questionable, and he's in that 4 o'clock time slot, but so is Allen Robinson, so Derek and I are going to have to watch and might need to sub Allen Robinson in there in the flex. Next, Minnie. Alvin Kamara is questionable after not playing last week. Minnie's trying to get an upset here. He really needs Kamara to go, and he needs Kamara to be the Kamara of old. Jamal Williams is starting for Minnie. After drafting all those wide receivers, he's starting Jamal Williams over Juju and Adam Thielen. Hunter Renfrow is out. This has to be really disappointing for him that he's going that way, but Williams, the Lions' offense looks good. They can support 2 running backs. He could hit big any week. I think I avoid the pitfall here. Not going to lie, I'm nervous based on the Thursday game and the fact that we're going into Sunday with Minnie having a lead and getting some good performances there, but I think we can hold on here. Next, Bills, McConnellsville Mutineers at 1-1, going against the top dog, Mark, Lady G's Beard at 2-0. Deontay Johnson scores 16.4 for Bill on Thursday, very nice, and Dem Stillers, 0 points for Mark on defense. So things are primed for an upset here. Bill, hoping that Austin Eckler can have his most Austin Eckler-ish performance against a weak Jacksonville team. Need a boom game here would be really nice when Bill seems to need it most. Christian Kirk is still amidst a breakout, and people are slow to react in weeks 1 and 2. Kirk is legit. He was a great grab, I think, and he's being predicted and ranked too low. Dawson knocks back in at tight end. Bill has just had no luck through 2 weeks at tight end. Probably, I think, a combined 2 or 3 points between the 2 weeks. So hopefully Knox can be a little more consistent and just get him something. Mark has that Stafford Cup combo now, and it's gross. I can't stand it. It's just awful. Darren Waller, is he going to get even more opportunity with Renfrow being out? Josh Jacobs also nursing an illness, may not play. So Waller could be in for a big day, and that tight end gap could be very pivotal in this game. And finally, of course, Mark, it's just you have to mention that Jamar Chase and DeAndre Swift are also great pieces along with Kupp. He's just got that built-in floor and a very high ceiling. It's tough to imagine him losing, but I'm predicting it. I think Bill gets the upset this week. I think the Thursday has just kind of put him in the right spot. And Mark, maybe not looking as great as possible this week. If there's going to be an upset this week, I have to pick at least one, right? I can't have all of the favorites. Finally, the game of the week, and this may seem like an odd choice for the game of the week, but it's the one that I'm the most interested in. Max's Super Mega, it's not a joke, versus Stan's Grabber by the Pelosi. There's Boswell, only 4 points for Max on Thursday. That's kind of disappointing. Nobody else played. And Max, after retooling with that trade, he gets no respect. He's ranked so low on the Fantasy Pros weekly power rankings for our league, and ESPN doesn't have him projected to get a lot. Stan, on the other hand, is thinking big. Stan's riding as high as can be after a big game last week. So, I don't know, but I think Max is better than he's getting credit for. The biggest problem for Max this week are injuries, with Josh Jacobs and Justin Herbert both being questionable. He's going to have to monitor both of those really closely. And if either of those can't go, it's going to make things very tough for him. Well, we're going to see if Curtis Samuel is a steal. I don't know how many weeks in a row he needs to prove that he's going to be very involved in that offense and get a lot of targets, but we'll see if 3 weeks would do it for people. And finally, the George Kittle debut, and this is where it could be a surprise this game. Kittle, with Jimmy G back at quarterback, has the potential to be huge. We know that. Kittle's only like 28. It seems like he's been in the league forever, but he's in his prime for a tight end. Could be huge. Now, for Stan, Joe Burrow has been bad. He's more like Burr. Whoa, am I right? And it's weird because he's been really bad, but he hasn't been scoring that badly. Like 13 and 15 points despite the 4 picks and not a great completion percentage, but hopefully Burrow can start to turn it around. You imagine that team will at some point. Then we have the Jalen Waddle, Mike Williams situation. Waddle's been great both weeks. Williams was a complete miss and then a complete hit. People aren't expecting both Waddle and Tyreek Hill to have huge games every single week. What can these two do, though? Are they going to score 10 points combined, or are they going to get 100 combined? Both seem possible. And is this the week for Derrick Henry? He's getting the carries. You're just waiting for him to break one out. It's going to happen at some point. But who do I think wins this game? I'm taking another upset here. I think Max is going to, because I believe in karma, and I believe that every time I trade somebody, they're going to go and do great on the other team, and it's going to bite me in the butt. So those are my predictions for this week. If you're still around, why don't you give us a like and a comment? I just want to see, since we're getting more than 20 views a video, what can happen. If like this can start to show up for people when they search for fantasy football. Anyway, that's it for this video. Remember, life gives you lemons. Take your Thursday players out of your flex. We'll see you next time.